Rian stepped out of the airport and took a long breath of fresh air. The sky was clear and bright, and the wind felt warm against his face. He had been away for 3 months, traveling across different countries for business meetings, presentations, and negotiations. He had earned more money in those months than most people earned in a year, but none of it made him truly happy. Every night during the trip, when he sat alone in hotel rooms, he thought about home. He thought about his daughter Hannah and how she used to wait for him near the door every evening. Rian was a millionaire, known for his business skills and calm nature. But when it came to Hannah, he was simply a father who missed his child deeply. As he looked around for his car, he imagined her smiling face, her bright eyes, and the way she held his hand tightly whenever she felt shy. She was 7 years old, gentle, cheerful, and full of questions about everything. Rian often joked that she could talk more in 5 minutes than most adults could in an hour. The car arrived, and the driver placed Rian's bags in the trunk. The ride home was quiet. Rian looked out the window, watching familiar buildings and streets pass by. Everything looked the same, yet he felt different. He had been gone too long this time. He usually returned within a month, but this trip kept extending. Every time he planned to come back, an urgent meeting appeared. Every time he wanted to call Hannah, it was late night in his time zone, and he was too tired to speak properly. He told himself she would understand. She was young but smart. She knew he worked hard for her future. Still, something inside him whispered that she needed more than gifts and money. She needed time. When the car finally stopped outside the gate of his large house, Rian felt a strange mix of happiness and guilt. The house was big, surrounded by a garden full of flowers. Hannah used to run around there, chasing butterflies or picking tiny flowers to give him. He smiled at the memory. He picked up a small bag from the seat beside him. Inside it were gifts he had collected for her during his trip. A handmade bracelet from a small village, a soft toy shaped like a tiny bear, and a music box that played a gentle tune. These would make her happy, he thought. Children love gifts. But deep inside he wondered if gifts were enough. Rian walked toward the entrance. The housekeeper Asha opened the door quickly and stepped aside. She was an older woman who had worked with the family since before Hannah was born. She smiled politely. "Welcome back, sir." "Thank you," he said. He waited for the sound of running footsteps. He waited for Hannah to jump out from behind the sofa, the way she used to. He waited for her to shout "Papa" with joy, but the house stayed quiet. Rian paused. The silence felt heavy. It pressed against his chest in a strange way. "Where is Hannah?" he asked. Asha lowered her eyes for a moment. "She is upstairs, sir. She has been quiet these days." Rian frowned. Hannah was never quiet. She talked, laughed, and hummed songs all the time. Something was wrong. He walked inside slowly. As he reached the hallway, something caught his attention. The wall near the staircase looked different. Many new papers were attached to it. He stepped closer and froze. There were drawings. Dozens of drawings, made with bright colors but filled with emotions he had never seen from his daughter before. Some showed a small girl standing alone near a window. Some showed a man leaving with a suitcase while the girl watched. One drawing showed a girl sitting on the floor beside a phone, waiting. Another showed a girl hugging her knees, looking down, with a simple line above her, "Please come home." Each drawing had short sentences written under them, simple words written in a child's handwriting. "I miss you. I wait for you. You did not call today. I asked Asha when you will come. I hope you remember me. I am lonely without you. I want to show you my new poem, please. Come back soon." Rian felt a sharp pain in his heart. His breath came slower. He reached out and touched one drawing gently as if it were fragile. He could almost feel Hannah's sadness in the colors, in the strokes, in every small line she drew. He had no idea she felt this lonely. He knew she missed him, but he never imagined she waited for him every night like this. He never imagined she would draw her feelings, because she had no one else to tell. Asha watched him silently from the corner. "She made these every evening," she said softly. After finishing her homework, she would sit near the window and draw. Sometimes she cried quietly but never said anything. "She always told me she wanted to surprise you when you came back." Rian closed his eyes. A deep regret settled inside him. He had thought he was doing the right thing by working hard. He believed earning more would give Hannah a better life. But now he understood that a better life meant nothing if she had no one to share it with. He opened his eyes and took a long breath. "Where is she now?" "In her room, sir." Without another word, he moved toward the stairs. His steps were slow but heavy with emotion. Every drawing he passed reminded him of something he failed to do. Every sentence written in Hannah's small handwriting felt like a message he ignored. When he reached the top of the stairs, he looked down the long hallway. Hannah's door was at the end. He saw the small sticker of a star on the door. She had placed it there last year because she said her room felt like her own little world. He walked toward the door. His hand trembled slightly as he pushed it open. Inside the room, the curtains were half open, letting soft sunlight enter. A small desk with colored pencils stood near the window. On the floor lay more drawings and a few unfinished ones. And there, near the desk, sat Hannah. Her hair was tied in a loose braid. Her shoulders looked smaller than he remembered. She held her small stuffed bear and stared outside the window with a blank expression. Her legs were pulled up slightly, and her chin rested on her knees. For a moment, she did not notice him. Rian watched her quietly. She looked different, not in appearance but in the feeling she gave. She looked lonely in a way that hurt him deeply. Hannah, he said softly. She turned her head slowly. When she saw him, her eyes widened. For a second, she remained frozen, as if she could not believe he was real. Then she stood up quickly. Her legs shook slightly, but she ran to him as fast as she could. "Papa, you came home," she cried. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly, as if afraid he would disappear again. Rian felt her small body press against him. He held her close and closed his eyes. Her hug carried months of longing, sadness, and hope. "I am here, Hannah," he whispered. "I am here now." And for the first time in a long while he understood how much she had suffered in his absence. Rian held Hannah in his arms for a long moment. Her small fingers clutched the back of his shirt with all the strength she had. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest. It was fast, almost trembling, as if she feared that if she let go, he might vanish again. The weight of that fear crushed him. He stroked her hair gently, feeling the braid she had made for herself. She wore simple clothes, a soft blue dress with tiny stars printed on it. He remembered buying that dress for her before his trip. She had loved it, but now it felt like she wore it too often. After a while, Hannah loosened her grip but did not step back completely. She kept her small hands wrapped around his arm and looked up at him with eyes full of mixed emotions. He saw joy, relief, fear, and something else that made his heart ache. It was hesitation, as if she wanted to ask him something but was scared to hear the answer. "You really came home," she whispered. "Yes, Hannah, I really came home," he said softly. She looked at him for a moment longer, then finally let go and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She tried to smile. It was a small smile but real. She walked to her desk and picked up one of her drawings. "I made this one last week," she said. "I wanted to show it when you came back." Rian took the drawing. It showed a small girl sitting in her room, hugging a bear. Outside the window was a bright sun, but inside the room it looked dim. Under the picture she had written one line in uneven handwriting. "I wait for you every day." Rian felt his throat tightened again. He placed the drawing on her desk carefully. "I am sorry, Hannah," he said in a quiet voice. "I should have been here sooner. I should have called you more." Hannah did not answer right away. She sat on the floor and hugged her bear again. She looked down, then said softly, "I used to wait near the window every evening. Asha told me you would come back, but the days felt long. I counted them on the calendar, but the numbers kept getting bigger." She pointed at the calendar hanging on her wall. Rian walked toward it. The small squares were filled with tiny marks. Each crossed day had a small word written under it: waiting, waiting, waiting. Some squares had short notes. "Missed your call today. Maybe tomorrow. I hope he is safe." Rian touched one square gently. He could imagine her sitting here every night, holding her pencil, writing small hopes under each day. No child should feel that way. No child should be left waiting for attention, for love, for presents. He turned around and sat beside her on the floor. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "Hannah, I cannot give back the days you waited, but I can promise to be better now." She looked up at him. Her eyes were soft but tired. It was the kind of tired that did not come from lack of sleep but from carrying sadness for too long. "Can you stay longer?" This time she asked quietly. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I will stay longer. I will make time for you. You are the most important part of my life." Her face brightened a little. She nodded and rested her head against his shoulder. They sat like that for a while, just breathing in the same quiet air. The room felt peaceful again, but Rian knew something deeper needed healing. Hannah might trust him, but a child's heart remembers loneliness. He had to rebuild the trust slowly and gently. After a few minutes she spoke again. "Papa, can we go downstairs? I want to show you something." "Of course," he said. She stood up, holding his hand, and led him out of the room. Her steps were small but sure. As they moved down the hallway, Rian noticed more drawings taped beside the doors. Some were half finished, some were crumpled but smoothed out again. Each one had Hannah's emotions painted in bright colors. When they reached the stairs, Hannah stopped and looked at the wall he had seen earlier. She hesitated. Her fingers squeezed his hand tightly. "Did you see these?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes," he said. "They are beautiful, but they made me very sad too." She swallowed and nodded. "I did not want to make you sad. I only wanted you to remember me." Rian knelt in front of her and held her hands. "I could never forget you, not even for a moment. You are my daughter. My heart is with you always, but I should have shown that more clearly." She gave him a tiny nod. Then she pulled him gently toward the living room. Inside, the room looked the same as always. The soft sofa, the wooden shelves filled with books, the plants near the windows. But on the coffee table lay a small wooden frame. Hannah walked toward it and lifted it carefully. "I made this in school," she said. "It is our family picture." Rian took the frame. Inside the frame was a drawing of him and Hannah standing under a tree. Their hands were joined. Both were smiling. The colors were bright and cheerful, very different from the drawings upstairs. "This looks wonderful," he said. Hannah smiled slightly. "The teacher asked us to draw our family. Other children drew their parents. I drew us. Rian felt emotion fill his chest again. This small girl saw him as her whole world. She had no one else. Her mother had passed away when Hannah was just a baby. Osha helped raise her, but a caretaker could never replace a parent. Rian was all she had, and he had left her waiting for 3 long months. She placed the frame back on the table. Then she held his hand again and led him to the sofa. Sit with me, she said. He sat, and she climbed beside him, placing her head on his arm. She looked up at him as if checking he was still there. Can you stay here for a while? She asked. As long as you want, he replied. She nodded and rested her head on him again. For the next few minutes, neither of them spoke. They just sat together, feeling the closeness that had been missing for months. After a while, Hannah spoke again. Her voice was soft. Papa, do you know why I make so many drawings? Rian looked down at her. Because you like art, she shook her head. No, I draw because it helps me talk. When I feel sad, I draw. When I wait for you, I draw. When I do not know who to tell my feelings to, I draw them on paper. Her explanation felt like a gentle wound. It hurt, but also opened his eyes. He had never asked why she drew so often. He always thought she simply loved colors and shapes. But now he understood that her art was her voice. Rian hugged her gently and whispered, "You can always talk to me. About anything. I will listen to every word." She closed her eyes and leaned closer. "I will try, Papa." They stayed like that for a long time. Rian felt calm for the first time in months. He felt connected to his child in a way he had almost forgotten. He promised himself he would never let her feel lonely again. When Hannah finally looked up again, her face seemed lighter. "Papa, can we do something fun today?" she asked. Rian smiled. "Yes, Hannah. Tell me what you want and we will do it together." Together, her eyes sparkled slightly for the first time since he arrived. "I want to do a puzzle with you," she said. Rian nodded. A simple request. A beautiful request. A request he would never refuse again. He stood up and held her hand firmly. Together, they walked toward the table where she kept her puzzles. And as they sat down on the floor and opened the box, Rian felt something inside him begin to heal. Rian sat on the floor beside Hannah as she opened the puzzle box. The pieces scattered gently across the carpet. They were colorful and shaped like different animals. Hannah picked up a small lion piece and held it up to him. "This one goes in the middle," she said proudly. Rian smiled and nodded. Then he picked up another piece shaped like a tree. "Does this fit here?" She studied it for a moment, then shook her head. "No, Papa. That one goes on the side. Here, let me show you." She guided his hand, placing the piece in the right spot. Rian watched her small fingers move with confidence. She was young, but she understood puzzles better than he expected. He remembered buying this puzzle for her last year. They never had time to try it together because he kept leaving for work. Seeing her excitement now made him realize how many memories they had missed out as they worked on the puzzle. Hannah talked about school, her friend Mina, and how she learned a new song recently. Her voice was soft at first, almost careful, but grew warmer as she felt more comfortable. Rian listened to every word. He answered gently, asking questions about her day and her favorite subjects. Hannah looked surprised whenever he asked something, as if she was not used to him paying so much attention. After about an hour, they finished the puzzle. Hannah clapped softly and leaned against him. "We did it, Papa. Yes, we did," he said, smiling. She looked at the puzzle proudly before turning her gaze to him again. "Papa, can we do this more often?" Rian placed his hand on her head. "Yes, Hannah, we can do this as much as you want. I will make sure of it." A bright smile spread across her face. She got up and picked another small activity book from the shelf. It was a coloring book filled with animals and flowers. She brought it to him. "Can we color together now?" she asked. Rian agreed. They sat with colored pencils, and Hannah explained which colors she liked using. She chose bright shades for flowers and soft shades for animals. Rian followed her choices, and when he made a mistake, she laughed gently. "Papa, you colored the rabbit blue," she said. Rian looked at the picture. "Oh no, I thought it was a cloud." Hannah laughed again. Her laughter filled the room with warmth. It had been too long since he heard it so clearly. She leaned closer and helped him choose the right colors. They spent nearly an hour filling the pages. When they finished, Hannah stretched her small arms. She looked relaxed for the first time since he came home. Rian watched her and felt relief. Slowly, she was opening up again. Rian stood up. "Are you hungry, Hannah?" She nodded. "Can we eat together like before?" "Of course," he said. They went to the dining room. Asha brought out warm food and smiled as she saw them together. It was the first time in months she had seen Hannah sit beside her father during dinner. Hannah talked about the puzzle and coloring while they ate. Rian listened with full attention. He felt grateful for each word she shared. After dinner, they went to the living room again. Hannah sat close beside him on the sofa and rested her head on his arm. "Papa, can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Of course," he answered. "When you were gone, did you think about Marian?" Looked at her carefully. Her eyes were hopeful but also scared. He took a deep breath. "Every day, Hannah. I thought about you every day. I missed you a lot." "Then why did you not call me more?" she asked, her voice soft but heavy. Rian felt guilt rise inside him. He touched her hand gently. "I was wrong, Hannah. I got busy and tired and I forgot how much you needed me. I should have called you. I should have listened to you every day. I am sorry, she nodded, but her eyes lowered. You told me once that you would call every night, but sometimes the phone stayed silent. I waited for it to ring. I kept my bear near me so I would not feel alone. Rian closed his eyes for a moment. He could imagine her sitting near the phone, waiting. He pictured her small shoulders, her sad eyes, her soft voice asking Asha if the phone might ring soon. The thought filled him with pain. He brought her closer and said softly, I will not let that happen again. I learned something very important. Work matters, but you matter more. She lifted her eyes. Really, yes, Hannah. You are the most important person in my life. Her small fingers curled around his arm. She leaned into him quietly. I am glad you came back. Papa. Rian looked around the room. The drawings on the walls showed sadness, but today, the air felt different. It felt warmer, softer, filled with hope instead of loneliness. After a while, Hannah got up and walked toward the shelf where she kept her school things. She took out a small notebook and handed it to him. Papa, look, I wrote something for you. Rian opened the notebook. On the first page was a short poem, written in uneven letters. It said, when days are long and nights feel slow, I wait and hope for you to show. One day you will come home to me, and then my heart will finally be free. Rian, read it twice. His chest tightened, but this time not from guilt alone. It was from the strength of her heart. Even in sadness, she had written something gentle and hopeful. This is beautiful, Hannah, he said. She smiled shyly. I wrote it when I missed you. Rian hugged her again. Thank you. I will keep this forever. She sat down and asked, Papa, will you stay home tomorrow? Yes, Hannah. I will stay here with you. She nodded and held his hand tightly, as if her fear of losing him was slowly fading. She looked toward the window. The evening sky was turning orange. Birds flew across the sky, returning to their nests. Papa, can we go outside for a little walk? She asked. Of course. They stepped into the garden. The flowers moved gently with the wind. Hannah walked slowly beside him, holding his hand. She pointed at the roses and said she wanted to paint them someday. Rian encouraged her, saying he would watch her paint and even try it himself if she taught him. Hannah laughed lightly. You will make the rose blue like the rabbit. Maybe I will, he said, smiling. They walked around the garden for a while. Hannah talked more and more. Her voice was clear now. She told him about her class project, a small play she wanted him to watch at school next month. Rian promised he would be there when they returned inside. It was getting late. Hannah yawned softly. Rian guided her upstairs to her room. She lay on her bed, holding her bear close. Rian sat beside her and brushed her hair back gently. Papa, will you read me a story? She asked. Rian picked one of her books and read slowly, giving each sentence warmth. Hannah listened with calm eyes. Halfway through the story, her breathing grew steady. Her grip on his hand loosened. She had fallen asleep. Rian closed the book quietly and watched her for a moment. Her face looked peaceful again. He pulled the blanket over her gently and whispered, I am here now, Hannah, and I am not leaving again. He stood up slowly and walked out of her room. At the doorway he looked back once more. The room was filled with drawings, but tonight it felt like a room slowly healing. Rian closed the door and took a deep breath. Tomorrow, he promised himself, would be better. Morning light spread across the sky, and it brought a soft calm into the large house. Ramon woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in many days, he felt a new hope inside his heart. He had spent the whole night thinking about the small boy he met at the shelter. He felt the boy's small hand in his memory and the boy's quiet voice calling him uncle. The feeling stayed with him even after he had returned home. As Ramon got ready, he looked around the house again. He had already seen the empty corners, but now he noticed something more. His daughter's room was neater than before. Her study table was arranged carefully. Her notebooks were stacked well. Her old toys were cleaned and placed on the shelf. It was a small change, but it showed effort, and it made him pause. He walked into the kitchen, expecting his daughter to still be asleep, but she was already awake. Mira was sitting at the table, trying to fix a small bracelet made with plastic beads. When she saw him, she froze, unsure if he was still upset after yesterday. Ramon sat across from her. He kept his voice soft and calm. Are you okay, Mira? She nodded slowly. Yes, Papa. Her voice was steady, but her eyes had a small shine of worry. I woke up early, she added. I wanted to finish fixing this bracelet. It is the same one you gave me when I was 6. I found it in the box yesterday. Ramon felt something shift inside him again. He had almost forgotten about that bracelet. He had bought it from a small shop during a work trip many years ago. He remembered the way little Mira had jumped with joy when he gave it to her. Seeing her repair, it showed that maybe she was holding on to more memories than he had thought. He smiled at her gently. It looks very nice. I am happy you kept it safe, she smiled back, shy but proud. Breakfast passed quietly, but the quiet was different. It was softer and more peaceful. Ramon noticed how Myra kept glancing at him, as if trying to read his expression. It was clear that she wanted to fix things between them but did not know how to start. Ramon felt the same. After breakfast, Ramon stood up. Mira, I am going to visit the shelter again. I want to see the boy from yesterday. Mira was surprised. She placed the bracelet on the table and looked at him with wide eyes. You are going again? Yes, he said. He sat down next to her and spoke carefully. I want to help him. I want to understand what he needs. I want to see how I can support him. Mira stayed quiet for a moment. Her fingers pressed against the table. Can I come with you? Papa Raymond looked at her with shock and relief. He did not expect this. He took a deep breath. Yes, you can come if you want. Her face brightened in a way he had not seen in months. She stood up right away and walked to her room to grab her bag. For the first time, Ramon felt like the distance between them was closing. During the drive to the shelter, they talked in small pieces. Mira told him about school projects and Ramon told her small stories from his work trip. None of the stories were dramatic, but they were real, and Myra listened with interest. She even laughed once, which filled the car with a warmth he had been missing. The shelter building appeared ahead, and Ramon felt his heart pick up speed. They walked inside, and the staff recognized him right away. The same caretaker smiled at them and guided them toward the play area. The boy was sitting on the floor with a few wooden blocks, stacking them one on top of another. When he saw Ramon, his eyes lit up. He stood up and ran toward him with small steps. Uncle Raymond kneeled and hugged him gently. The boy wrapped both his arms around Raymond's neck and held on. It felt natural and warm, and something inside Ramon softened more than ever. He picked the boy up and held him on his hip. The boy rested his head on Ramon's shoulder. Mira watched the moment quietly. She had never seen her father like this. He looked softer and more human. For the first time, she felt curious about the boy. What is your name? She asked the caretaker. His name is Rue, the caretaker said. Mira moved closer and sat on the floor near the boy. Rue looked at her shyly. Mira smiled gently. Do you want to play a game? Rue nodded. Ramon sat with them, watching as Myra picked up the wooden blocks and started building a small tower. Rue giggled and helped her. Soon, the three of them were building a small wooden house together. Ramon noticed something new. He saw how easily Mira talked to Rue. She explained each block as if she wanted him to understand everything. Rue giggled every time the tower fell, and Myra laughed with him. The caretaker whispered to Ramon, "Your daughter is very gentle with him. He likes her already." Ramon nodded slowly. It felt like he was witnessing something important. After some time, the caretaker approached them again. "Rue has a checkup in a few minutes. Would you like to come with him?" Ramon, "Yes, of course," Ramon said, lifting the boy into his arms again. Mira stood up too. "Can I come, Papa?" Ramon nodded. They followed the caretaker down the hallway. Rue held onto Ramon's shirt tightly. He seemed a little nervous, and Ramon rubbed his back calmly. Inside the small clinic room, the doctor checked Rue carefully. The boy stayed quiet, gripping Ramon's hand. Myra stood beside her father, watching in silence. "Everything looks fine," the doctor said. "He is healthy. He just needs regular meals, stability, and a safe home." Raymond felt those words sink deep into him. A safe home, a stable life. He felt Mira's hand touch his arm lightly. She looked up at him with gentle eyes. It was the first time she had touched him so softly in a long time. When they stepped out of the clinic, the caretaker asked them if they wanted to stay for lunch. Ramon looked at Myra. She nodded right away. "Yes, we would like to stay," he said. During lunch, Myra sat beside Rue and fed him small pieces of soft bread. Rue watched her with trust. Ramon watched them both with a full heart. He felt something blooming inside him, something he had ignored for too long. Maybe family was not only about blood. Maybe it was also about care and kindness. Maybe this boy could become a part of their lives after they finished eating. Rue climbed onto Ramon's lap and rested there as if he belonged. Ramon placed a hand on the boy's back and looked at Mira. Myra smiled at him. A real warm smile. "Papa, I like him." Ramon felt his throat tighten. "I like him too, Mira." They stayed at the shelter for hours. When it was finally time to leave, Rue held Ramon's hand and refused to let go. The caretaker gently explained that Rue had to stay for now. Ramon kneeled and hugged the boy. "I will come again," Ramon said. "I promise." Rue nodded slowly and touched Ramon's face with his small hand. On the drive home, Mira looked out the window, deep in thought. After a few minutes, she spoke softly. "Papa, do you think we can bring him home one day?" Ramon did not answer right away. He just looked at the road ahead, feeling the weight and warmth of the question. "Maybe," he said at last. "Maybe we can." Mira smiled and leaned back in her seat. Ramon felt a peaceful hope spread inside him. For the first time in a long time, their home did not feel empty in his mind. It felt like a place where something new could begin, something that could change all of their lives. The next morning began with a quiet peace inside the house. Ramon woke up early again, but this time he felt a new warmth in his chest. It had been a long time since he had felt something like this. The house still looked large and silent, but it no longer felt empty. His daughter's quiet steps and the memory of little Rue filled the space with a gentle hope. When he walked downstairs, he found Mira already awake. She was sitting on the sofa with a blanket wrapped around her legs. She had a notebook open on her lap, and when she noticed him, she closed it quickly. "Good morning, Papa." "Good morning, Mira." She hesitated for a moment. "Papa, I was thinking about Ruram," and sat across from her. "I was thinking about him." Mira took a deep breath. She had been quiet since yesterday's visit to the shelter, as if she was trying to gather her courage. "Papa, do you really think we can bring him home one day?" Roman looked at her carefully. She was not asking with childish excitement. She was asking with real concern, real care, and a real wish to make a difference. He felt proud of her in a way he had not felt in a long time. I do not know how long the process will take, but I think we should try, he said. Mira's eyes brightened with relief and happiness. She nodded hard, as if she had been waiting for these words. I want to help Papa. I want to make him happy. He looked scared yesterday and he held your hand so tight Ramon felt a deep ache inside. Rue's small hand gripping his head felt like a silent plea, a plea for safety and comfort. Ramon knew that feeling. He had lost his wife years ago. He knew the weight of fear and loneliness. Maybe that was why Rue's presence had touched him so deeply. He stood up and walked to the kitchen. Come on, Myra, let us have breakfast and then we will go again. Myra jumped up with excitement. We are going today also. Yes, we are, he smiled. Breakfast was simple, but filled with small conversations. They spoke about school, the shelter, and even small things like which dish they should cook later. The house felt alive again. After breakfast, they drove to the shelter. Ramon noticed how Myra looked outside the window with a soft smile. She had grown in the last few days, not in height but in understanding. She looked more responsible, more gentle, and more aware of others. When they reached the shelter, Rue was again sitting near the play area. He was holding a small wooden block in his hand and tapping it against the floor. The moment he saw Ramon and Mira, his face lit up. He stood up and ran toward them with small, quick steps. Uncle Raymond bent down and hugged him. Rue wrapped his arms around his neck tightly. Myra stood close, and Rue reached out to hold her hand. She smiled and squeezed his hand gently. Inside the shelter room, the staff looked pleased. He has been waiting for you since morning, the caretaker said. Ramon felt something warm settle in his heart. Mira sat on the floor with Rue and started showing him small drawings she had made in her notebook. They showed a little house, a small playground, and even a small family with 3 people. Rue looked at the drawings curiously. This is you, Mira said, pointing at one of the small figures. And this is Papa, and this is me and you together. Rue's eyes softened. He placed his small hand on the drawing as if he wanted to enter the picture. The caretaker whispered to Ramon, he does not attach easily, but with you both, he is opening up. Ramon nodded. He knew that meant something important. As the morning passed, the 3 of them played games, talked and laughed. Rue got comfortable enough to sit on Ramon's lap again, leaning against his chest. Mira would stroke the boy's hair gently whenever she passed him a toy or a snack. Around noon, the shelter director entered the room. She was a kind woman with a calm voice. Mr. Ramon, I heard you want to talk about Rue. Ramon stood up carefully, holding Rue in his arms. Yes, I wanted to know how the process works if someone wants to take responsibility for him. The director smiled. We are glad you are thinking about his future. Rue needs a stable home. He needs care and a safe environment. If you are serious, we can begin the first steps. Maria's heart raced. She looked at her father with wide, hopeful eyes. Ramon nodded. I am serious, he said. I want to try. The director explained the first steps, the documents, and the interviews. It would not be a quick process, but it was possible. When the director left the room, Mira hugged her father tightly. Thank you, Papa. Ramon placed a hand on her back. We are doing this together. Rue watched them with confusion. He did not understand everything, but he understood feelings. He walked toward them and touched both of their hands gently, as if he wanted to be included, as if he wanted to belong. The rest of the afternoon passed peacefully. Ramon and Mira filled out basic forms while Rue played beside them. At one point, Rue climbed onto Ramon's lap again and rested his head on his chest. Ramon held him close, feeling a new kind of responsibility settling in his heart. In the late afternoon, they prepared to leave. Rue looked worried when he saw them standing near the exit. He reached out and held Ramon's shirt tightly. Ramon kneeled down. Rue, we will come back tomorrow. Rue looked unsure. His grip tightened. Mira knelt beside him. Rue, tomorrow we will come and play again. You are not alone. Rue slowly loosened his grip. He looked at both of them with a soft, innocent trust. Ramon touched his cheek gently. I promise, Rue, we will come again. They walked out of the shelter. Myra looked back once more through the glass door and saw Rue standing there watching them with wide, hopeful eyes. When they reached home, the house no longer felt empty. It felt like it was waiting for someone new, someone small, someone who needed love. Ramon sat on the sofa with a long, deep breath. Mira sat beside him. Papa, do you think Rue will be happy with us? Ramon placed his arm around her shoulders. I think he will be happy, Mira. I think we will give him a life filled with care, and I think he will bring joy into our home. Mira leaned her head on his shoulder. I feel like our family is growing. Papa Raymond nodded slowly. Yes, Myra, our family is growing for the first time in many years. Ramon felt something whole inside his heart. He had returned home after 3 months of work. He expected only silence and disappointment, but instead he had discovered a small boy who needed him, a daughter who wanted to rebuild their bond, a new beginning that he had never imagined. That night, as he closed his eyes, he felt a peaceful certainty. Tomorrow would be another step, a step into a future where Myra would have a brother, and Rue would finally have a home.